Hey Sabrina, you can hear me, right?
Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
There we go. Now I can hear you. My sound was all the way down.
Oh, okay.
Awesome. And then let's see, who were we? Oh, I think I see Nirali there. Hi, Nirali.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, awesome.
Great. Awesome. Well, we'll get started in about 8 minutes. So for the folks already on, thanks for joining us early. I will kick us off right at 10 a.m. Pacific time. So about 8 more minutes.
Awesome. All right. And what I'm going to do literally is I'm going to see if I can, let me see if I can share the screen. Where's that? I can see my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so we can have this here. Okay, perfect. Okay. And let me just double check that there's no good way to go from here. Maybe there's a way. I think that's fine. I think that's okay. All right, I'm just going to move it to a different window because when I'm in the presentation mode, I don't see the screen. That's why. It's okay. I'll just move another tab. Let's do this. Perfect. Okay. Right. I'll be back. Okay.
Sounds good. Okay, looks like we have folks starting to join in. We'll kick us off in about a minute.
Okay.
Okay, come on screen. All right. Well, thank you everyone so much for joining us today. I'm very excited to have Nirali and Samir joining us to present the 4th episode of Master API Management. I'm going to open the Q&A tab. So if you have any questions while they're presenting, please post them in the Q&A, just because it helps us make sure that if there are any questions we don't get to before the end of this session, we can get to them offline. And so with that, I will be on the meetup, just not going to be on screen, and I will hand it over to Samir and Nirali to take over the presentation. Thank you both.
Awesome. Hey, thanks, Sabrina, and hey, thanks, everybody. I'm really excited. This is our 4th community session as part of the Master API Management series. So we've been getting really good response from you all, good feedback, good questions, Q&A as part of this series. So really excited about it. It's something that it's a series that we started around 3 months back, and every month we kind of like delivered on sessions on some of the key topic areas pertaining to product capabilities. So excited to talk to you today about, as part of that series, about Anypoint API Manager, which is, a lot of you might be already familiar with that. It's our centralized control plane for API managing and securing APIs. So incredibly important product, kind of like a core value add as you start adopting APIs in your environment. So excited to talk to you about that. Quick intro about me, Samir Purulkar, product marketing here at Salesforce, focused on universal API management set of products and capabilities. And I'm excited to and joined today by Nirali. Nirali, do you want to do a quick overview, like intro of you?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Nirali Sura, leading API manager within our dynamic product team, and I'm very excited to be here today.
Awesome. Thanks, Nirali. Um, so let's get started again. As with any Salesforce presentation, quick like safe harbor statement. We will be talking about new products, capabilities, but please make your purchasing decisions on the products available today. With that, let's get started. Again, this was just a quick overview of the API management, mastering API management series that we started back in April. This is the 4th episode of that. We started with talking about API gateways, then we covered concept about governing APIs. So API gateways, we highlighted Flex Gateway, Mule Gateway, governance APIs, we highlighted API governance, how you can govern APIs. Then back in June, we spoke about the developer portal, right? How can you engage on those APIs, highlighting API Experience Hub and as well as Exchange. Today, we'll dive a bit more into API Manager, kind of like going in through all the different key product capabilities across the API management product portfolio. And then coming August 29th, we will be talking about some of the best practices to catalog APIs within Anypoint Exchange. So this is a quick overview of the community series. Again, as I said, this is a new series that we started, and again, getting a good response from you all. So let's get started. So before we begin, right, before we dive a bit deeper into API Manager as a product, I wanted to kind of like set the stage. Some of you have already attended some of this series before, so you're like kind of like familiar with this. But I wanted to re-emphasize this again, right? As we talk about, as we talk to a lot of customers like you, other customers, our partners, we repeatedly keep getting this. A big challenge a lot of customers have is this about API sprawl or API proliferation. And what at a highlight, what this actually means is that as you're adopting APIs, I mean, you use the API-led approach. You develop your APIs to connect data, to compose digital experiences. Oftentimes, you use them on the Anypoint platform to great value, right? Great advantage for you. But your APIs are also across your environment, across your infrastructure, right? As you develop digital services across different for different applications by different teams, where APIs are everywhere across different cloud deployments, microservices architecture, event-driven architecture, and many things like that, right? And that in turn, what happens is that APIs in itself are now across this diverse architecture, deployment patterns, and using different types of protocols, right? And we call this the API sprawl or API proliferation. And the biggest challenge with that is it creates limited visibility and management across your infrastructure. Again, key challenges you might see is lack of visibility into your API infrastructure itself, right? In turn, then that inhibits your ability to provide the best practices on your APIs. Insufficient control across the diverse architecture and complex operations and troubleshooting, right? And when you look at a Gartner stat that more than 50% of APIs are going to be unmanaged by 2025, the biggest issue with this is a security vulnerability within our organization, right? This in turn, then how can we solve that problem, right? So at MuleSoft, we believe that a way to solve this problem of API sprawl or control the APIs, not necessarily solve the problem, but control the API sprawl is by using this approach of universal API management, right? That's our vision for API management. And what that means is that expanding the scope of API management to any API that you have, Mule APIs that you're developing, but also non-Mule APIs. At a high level, what universal API management allows you to do is design and build APIs on the Anypoint platform using different protocols, OAS, as well as like OpenAI, OAS, as well as async API, different protocols. Then, once you develop them, compose them, discover non-Mule APIs, govern them, govern both Mule and non-Mule APIs. I'm going to cover this. Manage and secure any API, protect those APIs using different policies, and then engage and scale on those APIs, right? Again, reuse APIs. So that's at a really high level what universal API management is. It's our vision, it's MuleSoft's vision for API management. And it's also, the vision is what actually guides also our product strategy. So now, how do we help you with universal API management? How do we deliver universal API management, right? And we deliver that with a set of capabilities, right? Again, across your API lifecycle, design and build those APIs. Again, capabilities like Anypoint Studio, which is all something that you're already familiar with, a product that you've been using for many years now. Code Builder, which is the new product that we launched last year, again, a low-code VS Code-based tooling, and API Designer, again, another product that you've been familiar with and using for a couple of years now, allowing you to design your APIs. With this set of capabilities, you can now, again, design your APIs, implement your APIs, as well as compose your APIs on the Anypoint platform. Then next is discovering non-Mule APIs and bringing them into Exchange for a single source of truth for all your APIs. That's where API Catalog CLI, the product capabilities help you. This is the product that we launched as part of Universal API Management back in 2022, right? But with API Catalog CLI, it allows you to now catalog, like discover a non-Mule API and catalog them into one place in Exchange. And Anypoint API governance, which again allows you to now govern both Mule as well as non-Mule APIs. Now, for each one of them, like for API governance, we covered that in our last, like not the last, the second session. And cataloging, we're going to cover it more in the next session. Then the next step is like, okay, now you have these APIs in Exchange, you have the governance and best practices. How can you manage and secure those APIs, right? Write policies like Flex Gateway, Mule Gateway, as well as API Manager. We're going to cover a lot here in this section today. And then engaging and scaling on those APIs, right? How can you now get the most value from your API investments, right? Your API strategy. Anypoint Exchange as a single source of truth for all your APIs, as well as API Experience Hub, which is basically the developer portal that allows you to now create personalized developer portals or API portals to start sharing on those APIs internally as well as externally with your customers and partners. Right? We covered this in the third community series about developer portals. And all of this, right, allowing you to operate and deploy across your flexible architecture, right? Cloud Hub to deploy your APIs, right? Anypoint APIs, Runtime Fabric to deploy on-premise, as well as monitoring capabilities across your MuleSoft infrastructure. So at a high level, Universal API Management is our vision, and we deliver that as part of this product set of capabilities to protect, govern, and scale any API across your lifecycle. And this just kind of like adds us more around across the API lifecycle, the different set of capabilities that we provide, all the way from if you walk through all the way from on your bottom right hand side with Anypoint Studio, Code Builder to implement those APIs, to compose those APIs, Design Center to now design those APIs with mocking services available as part of that. API governance to then conformance check on those APIs, make sure that the APIs conform to those best practices. Exchange as a single source of truth, as a catalog for across for your APIs, monitoring on those APIs, API manager to now manage those APIs for policies, and runtime manager to deploy those APIs. So across MuleSoft, we provide you now a set of capabilities for your overall API lifecycle. So now let's kind of like dive a bit more into the manage and secure. And when you think about manage and secure, right, a basic premise of this is as you develop APIs, as you deploy APIs on Mule as well as on a non-Mule platform, a basic thing that you're going to start thinking about is how do I actually protect my API, right? Like who can access my API, how many times that API can be accessed, and can I control the flow of control for how many times that API is accessed in a day, like rate limiting. So that's a basic thing like authentication, API access, authorizing the API access. Like one is who can access, how many times they can access, the rates of how many times they can access, like in a day, in a month, and then defining different client contracts, right? And the way we do that is we have multiple gateway options, Flex Gateway, Mule Gateway, as well as API Manager. So if I look at the overall, what we provide as part of Manage and Secure, we have Anypoint Flex Gateway, which is our distributed ultra-fast gateway to deploy that you can control, protect any non-Mule API. Mule Gateway, which is an embedded API gateway within the MuleSoft platform to protect APIs built on Mule runtime. And then API Manager becomes a centralized control plane to now manage these APIs across these different gateways. So okay, we can use API Manager to now uh, again configure and deploy these different APIs to different gateways, as well as now look at analytics on that API. So we're going to Nirali is going to go into details about each one of these, so like API Manager capabilities. But think about API Manager as your centralized control plane for all your APIs, right? It's one place you go to now look at the API, deploy that API, deploy a gateway, Flex Gateway, Mule Gateway, deploy API instances to those gateways. And once they're deployed, the policies for those, as well as then get metrics and analytics on those APIs. So again, allowing you to onboard API as part of your API programs in itself and make smarter decisions. So that's a quick overview from my perspective about universal API management, and then about API Manager as a manage and protect. Next, I'm going to hand it over to Nirali to walk you through the details about API Manager and a deep dive on API Manager. Nirali, off to you.
Yes, thank you, Samir. Let's delve into the powerful features of API Manager. As we discussed and we have established so far that API Manager serves as a comprehensive entry point for orchestrating many aspects of your API management. In result, it provides a unified and seamless experience. We talk about centralized and having a hub and being epicenter of API management, that is API Manager. But let's unlock what does it mean. So the API Manager is epicenter of API management, offering one-stop shop for handling all APIs across various environments, gateways, regions, asset types, and proxy types. This centralization ensures that you can easily manage and monitor every facet of your API ecosystem from single interface. You can control API access, API performance, the usage of API, the traffic, and also the conformance of API instance while using the features that API Manager provides: contract management, policy management, governance report, and monitoring capabilities, all within API Manager. Next slide, please. Let's dive into two key personas that we will use to explore powerful features of API Manager. API Manager stands out as a premier platform with a versatile tool which helps in designing and addressing the needs of roles within an organization. But today we will focus on two critical roles, API owner and API operations team. The primary motivation for an API owner to leverage API Manager, number one, is simplicity and interactivity. API Manager provides intuitive and interactive workflow that makes it easy to create and configure APIs through UI, that is Anypoint platform, through CLI, or through API platform API. This ensures that the process is not only straightforward, but also efficient in reducing time to market and enhancing productivity. Number two is reliability and speed. With API Manager, reliability is crucial for maintaining high quality API services and ensuring consistent performance for critical APIs. On the other hand, for API operations team, API Manager provides centralized, real-time, and reliable metrics, alerting, reporting, and analytics. The motivation for operations team, number one, is centralized monitoring. We deliver real-time key metrics that are crucial for maintaining the health of API portfolio. It simplifies the oversight of multiple APIs and ensures the performance data is readily available. Number two is alerting and analytics. With advanced analytics and alerting features, the operations team can proactively predict potential risk and identify security breaches before they impact your organization. This foresight is essential for managing API performance and safeguarding against potential threats such as denial of service, brute force attack, or scraping attack. Can API Manager truly address all these needs? Absolutely. We deliver a powerful combination of management and security features that enables and equips both personas, API owner and API operation teams, with the tools they need to excel. Next slide, please. We will pick each pillar to explore how API Manager integrates to unlock value for different personas. Next slide, please. API Manager is tightly integrated with all pillars. API Manager interacts with many Anypoint tools, including Design Center to specify the structure of the API, with governance to govern the instances. With Exchange, we are tightly coupled to store and publish API assets. And we are picking Manage and Secure as our first pillar to look into. This pillar is all about control. The control in API management world is protecting and deploying and maintaining your performant API. Deploying API with API Manager is fast and simple. After you have created an API using Design Center or any other application, you can manage that API in API Manager by adding an API instance. API owners use Flex Gateway for any API that need flexible and performant API gateway that also works with distributed microservices environments, which also fits into your CI/CD environments. There are three options for adding API instances in API Manager. Either you create a brand new API, or you promote an API from an environment, or you import an API from zip. Taking an example of adding a brand new API, while configuring this new API, API owner will have to define two new configurations which were already present, but we have redesigned the way the entire API instance is deployed. The two new configurations are downstream connection and upstream connection. The downstream connection is between the client application and the gateway, while the upstream connection is between the gateway and the backend service. With Flex Gateway version 1.5 and later, we support and expose multiple upstreams, that is gateway talking to multiple backend service through single consumer endpoint. Flex Gateway manages the traffic that is coming in using different routes with respective rules, which will direct your traffic to multiple upstreams, those are the backend services, from the gateway. Additionally, you can also add weighted percentage to each upstream services within a route to manage the percentage of requests that are being sent to a specific upstream service. In Q4, you will experience the power of our fully managed Flex Gateway service on Cloud Hub 2.0. This will say goodbye to the hassle of managing or scaling infrastructure. We will handle it all for you. With built-in high availability and auto-scaling, your gateway stays online and responsive, all while adapting to fluctuation in API call volume. Plus, say hello to streamlined operations with auto-upgrade, which will minimize downtime, which will also eliminate the operational overhead for your API owner. It's API management made easy. Next up, we have another new functionality coming up for Flex. Today, API Manager supports automated policy, API level policy, multiple out of the box policies, also custom policies. And these are all designed around inbound policies. These are policies which are securing your connection between the client application and the gateway. But in Q4, API Manager is extending the inbound policy framework to outbound policy, such as circuit breaker, OAuth, basic auth, timeout, and AWS Lambda policies, which will protect your gateway and the backend service connection. I'm just going to take a quick pause to see if there are any questions for this section. I don't see it, so we'll move forward to the next one. The next pillar that we're going to look into is the discover and govern. We launched API governance 2 years back, which empowers developers and our security team to maintain compliance and control across API initiative. We are seeing a great traction in adoption of API governance because you see a good value in defining and enforcing guardrails across your API lifecycle. Since launch, we have already extended our governance from API design to API instance for overall end-to-end governance. Now, API owner can review conformance status of API instance within API Manager. The integration between API Manager and governance will help API owner ensure that every instance of a governed API conforms to standards. What are these standards? For example, such as each API instance for this API should have a policy. Another example, whether a TLS context is required for this instance or not. API owner will have to first opt in to start generating governance report for all version and instances of given API. That is the first screenshot on the left-hand side on your screen, which shows that the API owner will take action to opt in to start generating the governance report. Then API owner will have to make sure in order to see this governance report in API Manager, you have to either apply an out-of-the-box policy or a custom, out-of-the-box rule set or a custom rule set that has been applied to the API that API owner intend to receive governance report for. Once these steps are done, API owner can navigate to API Manager landing page and to the API summary page where they can access the governance report surfacing API conformance status. That is the another screenshot on the right-hand side of your screen you can see, which shows an example of information about a couple of violations for a specific API instance. How can an API owner learn more about these rule sets which are not conformant for this API? To do so, API owner can actually go into Exchange. Let's say the rule set is API management best practices. The owner will click on that rule set in Exchange, view the description to understand the rules that this API is not conformant with. Again, taking a quick look if we have any questions. If not, moving to next. The next pillar that we have is engage and scale. We'll see how API Manager plays a crucial role while your API consumer is requesting access and how API owner reviews and takes an action. Exchange and API Experience Hub drives consumption of API through catalogs and portals within your organization of developers. which will facilitate collaboration and will boost the productivity. Let's take a look at the Experience Hub, how API consumer starts its journey for requesting an access and reusing an API asset. API Experience Hub serves as a centralized hub where your developer can discover, can explore, and consume APIs, which will drive productivity, slash the time to market, and drive API projects. The end-to-end contract management starts with API consumer requesting access through a portal. From API details page, the API consumer will request access to an API instance which a client application is registered to. To do so, API consumer on the portal will have to select API instance, will have to create or select an existing client application, and optionally can also select an SLA tier, which is service level agreement for this specific contract between the application and the instance. Once API access request is sent, next slide please, API owner will get notified through an email notification about an incoming API access request. The API owner will navigate to API manager to review this request, and it will either have an option to accept or reject the access request. When API owner decides to approve the request, a contract is created between the client application and the instance. For the end-to-end contract management, on top of this, API Manager provides a lot more features such as auto approval of access request, manual approval with SLA tiers, revoking and rejecting access request, editing and deprecating SLA tiers, also managing client application credentials and managing access requests for API groups in addition to individual API instances. API owner gets flexibility in proactively securing APIs against unauthorized consumers and can also protect API performance against potential security threats. Next slide, please. Now we will jump into the last pillar, that is operate and deploy. Anypoint platform gives you alerts around request behavior, performance issues, actions related to client application contracts, and runtime events. Out of all these, we have three specific types of alerts in the platform: API alerts, contract alerts, and runtime alerts. API alerts and contract alerts are managed by Anypoint API Manager. And for today's session, we're going to focus on the API alerts. API Manager enables the operation team. It could also be a central for enablement team who's taking in consideration the entire API portfolio and monitoring it actively using alerts. These teams can configure four types of alerts: policy violation, request count, response code, and response time. Operation team or the C4E team can add and configure API alerts that flag unusual API behavior. For an example, that an API response time over 60 seconds. Another example is more than 1,000 API requests in 30 seconds. The API alert could be configured at different levels such as info, warning, or critical. The alert could also be enabled, disabled, and deleted at any time. The API owner and configured receivers of the specific alert will receive and get notified by an email when the alert is triggered and resolved. So they have end-to-end visibility into when the alert is triggering and when to take an action. API Manager also enables API operational team with key metrics to actively track API instance performance. API Manager is closely integrated with Anypoint monitoring in building these key metrics. For an example on screen, you see we have captured key metrics for an Flex API. The key metrics section of API summary contains four charts: total request, total policy violation, total errors, and average response time. You can view the data points collected for last given period of time, such as last 5 minutes or 30 minutes. You could also select a specific date range to see the data. Operational team can navigate to Anypoint monitoring for further deep dive, to create custom dashboard, to create reports, or to have a specific chart created for your API performance and keep actively monitoring it. And I see a question, these matrix of API manager can be exported. I believe so. On the screen, there are three dots vertical. If you click on that, there is a option to download as CSV or export. You should be able to use that. And yeah, we'll move to the next slide. Let's take a look at API Manager's key features that we have delivered this year and in um, almost past 12 months. Multiple flex upstreams with traffic management and routes. We just discussed about is how you can protect your gateway and communicate to multiple backend services while only having one consumer endpoint, which is available now for Flex APIs. Governance report for SOAP and RAML API instances. Today, you can go into API Manager, and if you have opt-in and you have added one or more custom or out-of-the-box rule set to an API, and you have created an API instance for this API, you will be able to see a governance report in API Manager. Client application to be owned by non-org admin users. Client applications before were only be managed by the owner of the client application or the org admin. We created two new permissions, which will give you an ability to just view client applications or manage the client applications. Those permissions are available now. So I'm going to take a pause to see if we have questions here. How to get notified based on API HTTP status failure. So for that, you would have to use total errors key matrix to keep monitoring if a certain response code of HTTP, like some of HTTP response code that occur in selected time period, you could use that key matrix. I'm trying to see for alert, you could use the response code alert and create an alert on based on that to get some status failure alerting. In the past
I think,
slide, sorry, go
yeah, I
ahead.
can answer that. I think there was a question about the flex on Cloud 2 and then the date. We said Q4 2025 or Q, and here we say Q4 24. Uh, Sorry for that. I think we always get, I think we confuse everybody when we say those dates. So when we say Q4, it's Q4 our FY25. So our Q4 FY25 is essentially November, December, January. So that's our Q4 for Salesforce. So what I can give you, like, at a high level, what we're expecting is the managed Flex gateway to be available around January, February timeframe. So that's what we're trending right now for the GA for that. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but sorry for that confusion.
Sorry, I first wanted to give a calendar year date and then I
Yeah.
changed it to fiscal year, and that's why the confusion. Sorry about that. How to configure alerts based on custom matrix. So that is a feature on our backlog. It is not available as of today, but we will be looking into possibility of prioritizing that for next fiscal year. Okay, moving on to things that are coming up in next 6 months. We plan to deliver features such as client application to be owned by teams, internal and external IDP support within same environment. Today, either you can use the Anypoint IDP or an external IDP for all API within one environment. And we understand for our enterprise customers that is not a reliable option. So we are trying to provide a support for internal and external to coexist within the same environment. Managed Flex Gateway, we just clarified the date for that. And extending the inbound policy framework to outbound policies, that is also coming up in Q3 of this year. Governance report for HTTP API instances. Today, you can access governance report for SOAP and RAML APIs, and we are going to be adding HTTP API support again coming up in Q3 this year. I'm just seeing if there's a question.
I think there's a bunch of questions.
So I
There's a
answered.
question there.
Yeah, I answered for the exported one, also for the HTTP failure. The question from Srinivas in API in Runtime Manager. Dashboard connectors. Let's see if we are seeing the. Yeah, I'm not sure about this, Srinivas. I can work with Runtime Manager team and see um, if this is possible or if this is on their roadmap. I can follow up offline. And from Hamza, how to log the upstream call URI using Flex Gateway in local mode. We tested with logging policy, but it only logs the inbound request between the client and the Flex instance. Also, how can I monitor Flex Gateway when it's running in local mode? How to log the upstream call? Um, I'm pretty sure you have looked at the documentation, MuleSoft documentation that can provide some examples on how to configure your local mode with URI. The outbound, the upstreams are, the multiple upstreams should be supported with local mode as of today. Um, yeah, I think I will have to check back with the Flex team
Yeah,
to see what's the appropriate response here. But Hamza, I can follow up with you offline.
yeah, and I think even the question about monitoring is going to be, I think, especially when you're doing in a local mode, it's a limited monitoring, but I know you can export those metrics out and then you can import them into your tool of choice. But it's not definitely not straightforward just because it's local mode.
Yeah, if you're interested in doing more advanced alerting and key metrics, which are provided through API Manager, it has to be connected mode. Otherwise, as
Yeah,
Samir mentioned, you'd have to extract the data and do it on a third party or any other centralized monitoring platform you have for the organization. Okay, from Edgar, just today I used a custom dashboard with graph report named, and I'm not sure which is the unit of measure of the y-axis. Is the heap used by each endpoint? Okay, custom dashboard. Are you, Edgar, are you referring to Anypoint monitoring custom dashboards or API analytics custom dashboards? Anypoint monitoring. For
anything.
Anypoint monitoring, we'll have to. This is a very specific question about a chart that I'm not so sure I know at top of my head. This is a separate team within MuleSoft who maintains custom dashboard built-in charts and reports. So I can take your feedback and get back to you if I get some clarification. We do have limits on alerts. So a question from Ivan is, could you please tell about the number of configurable alerts? Is it defined by subscription model? Yes. Let me just pull up documentation so that I don't give you misinformation. We do have alert limit based on the subscription tier. I think for Titanium, you have we have documented somewhere in our documentation.
I think it should be in the documentation.
Yeah, I think it's a 10 alerts. You can have at 10 active alert per API instance if you are Titanium. And if for non-Titanium customers, it is, I think, around 5. But again, you can find this information in documentation under API Manager alerts.
I think there's a question by Maxime. Sorry, it's been there, but we're not responded yet.
Oh,
I was like, question about, are you planning to have a managed async API, auto-generated REST API facade for an async API spec that will manage and validate content based on async API spec? Um, I think I'll have to get back to you on that. I know we are able to, we can certainly, um, using async API, you can actually scaffold a code today in Anypoint Code Builder. Recently, we supported the latest, like I think the 2.0 version of async API, if I'm not wrong. And you can, using that, you can actually scaffold an API in Code Builder. We do support the governance for that API, async API. So you should be able to go in your Code Builder, create like a profile and create a rule set to actually govern that. In terms of, I think maybe if that's what you're asking, so we are able to do it today. Um, I think in terms of actually protecting an async API directly, I think that's something that we don't currently support through Flex Gateway today. I hope that answers that question, but we can certainly get back to you on something more about the schema registry.
Okay, we have a question from Ken. Can you provide more info about replacing analytics with endpoint monitoring, and will there be new capabilities, any licensing change? If you're aware and familiar with endpoint monitoring, it already provides custom dashboard built-in charts for APIs. And currently, API analytics and endpoint monitoring are a uh, I would say same offering within a platform on two different places. So we are trying to merge and bring a centralized experience across your applications and flows and APIs all through Anypoint monitoring. There are not going to be any new capabilities. Anypoint monitoring already has 95% parity with our existing API analytics feature. So we are not adding any new capabilities, but trying to move and migrate our customers from API analytics, which is within API manager, to Anypoint monitoring. We are building a comprehensive migration guide which explains specific feature to feature parity. If there is a disparity, how we're going to handle that, and how that is going to be on our backlog, how you can help your customers migrate their charts and dashboards to the new Anypoint monitoring. All that information, we are building a comprehensive guide. Please look out for that. It should be, we are targeting a date somewhere mid September to build this guide. And we are targeting this migration in a two different buckets. We have identified customers who are being engaged on analytics, so we're going to put them in an allow list, and we'll give them more extended time to keep utilizing analytics until they are comfortable and completely migrating off to Anypoint monitoring. And the non-allow listed customer, which we have seen zero engagement in past 6 months on analytics, will automatically move to Anypoint monitoring and will not have access to analytics starting November. So that is the strategy we are utilizing for now. And Ken, as I mentioned, please look out for a KB article, which is external friendly, and also a migration guide that we are building, which will give you much more details around this. Is it available for Platinum license users? Um, So as I understand, Anypoint monitoring is available for Titanium customers, certain features. So there is basic monitoring and advanced monitoring. So all the features which is part of the entitlement of basic monitoring will be available to all customers irrespective of licenses. And there is Archive API, one feature which is only part of Titanium license. If you want to build reports and generate reports and extract data from the Anypoint platform and do your monitoring on any third party monitoring applications, the Platinum customer would have to move to Titanium license to get that feature after the migration. And again, in this guide, we will try to explain all the implications for entitlements and pricing. And we are ensuring that this transition will be smooth, and we'll do our best to handhold all our customers to move to Anypoint monitoring from analytics. And yeah, I think on the screen, Samir, you want to talk about it, but you can utilize any benchmark reports, our upcoming
Yeah.
innovations, sessions we have already had for gateway, governance, and AEH. Please use respective links and do give us feedback if those are helpful for you. And join us for the next session, and we can talk more then.
Yeah, again, thanks everybody for attending, for your time today. Again, great questions. Again, please let them ask more. If you have any other questions after the session, again, please reach out. We will share those slides with you all. I know there were a couple of questions over there. Please do use all these resources. I mean, we have many more. Specifically, the demo API management with Anypoint platform that actually walks you through each of the product capabilities that we were talking about, this, like as part of this series. And I think if you're new to Anypoint, new to API management, that kind of gives you a really quick high-level overview of the different set of capabilities. So please do that, and do join our next session on August 29, where we'll actually go through the cataloging capabilities and best practices for that. So that's it from our end. I think we answered mostly everything. Um, Let me just say,
And
yeah, I
yeah,
think we answered most.
yeah, I think we did. Thank you, everyone, for all the questions and the engagement. Again, feel free to reach out after this session if you want to learn more, share your feedback, or want to collaborate on any innovative solutions that you have thought about. You know where to find us, and we'll be excited to work with you.
Amazing. Thank you all. Thank you so much for our attendees. We will send a follow-up email next week with the slide deck and the recording. Thank you so much to Samir and Nirali for your amazing presentation. And we will see you all on August 29th for the final session in our series. Thanks so much, and we'll see you soon. Bye, everyone.
Bye bye.
Bye.